Chapter 37. Mac and Nicola left with the teapot. On the way back to the kitchen, Mandeep ran over to them carrying a tin mug. "Is there any left?" she gasped, "because Lenny would like a top-up, and I said I'd look." She held the mug as Mac poured the remaining tea out. Nicola spooned in some powdered milk, and Mandeep walked off, carefully holding the mug in front of her. Mac replaced the teapot in the kitchen and walked back to where he'd left the ladder. Pascal passed him, en route from the workshop carrying a lump hammer. She looked up at him. "Out with it," she said. "He's ridden all over your face. What is the matter?" Mac gave a humourless laugh. "How do you do that?" "Never mind that," Pascal said flatly. "What are you worrying about?" "It's our numbers," he answered, emphasising the problem with his open, empty hands. "We need more people than we've got, but I don't know what to do about it. Should I propose officially taking on—" "We have more than enough willing workers, you fool," she interrupted. "Any time we want, the Danes will come over and work for their daily bread." "I know," Max said. "That's part of the problem. They're so willing to do that. It must mean things are not working out on Gary's farm." "True, but how is that a problem?" "Perhaps for Gary, not for us." "Because if we poach their best workers, aren't the others going to starve?" "Are you responsible for the entire world? That is a problem for them to solve, or not." "I suppose you're right," Mac conceded reluctantly. "I am right, Mac," Pascal replied with conviction. "Who do you think you are responsible for? Who is your priority?" She waited for his answer. "When you put it like that, it's obvious. It's us toffs. Us that's pulled together all these months. We come first, second and third." "Correct," Pascal pronounced. "At last he has got there." She spoke to the skies as if offering a prayer of thanks or relief. She paused for a moment, thinking, "Gary has not told you of his problems? Or asked for help, no?" "That's right, not a word." "You must be right that they are having problems over there. The Danes who come to work 2 weeks ago look so skinny." She paused a second time. "Why would he keep it from us? Why so secretive?" She mused. "In any case, it cannot," she turned her head to Mac to emphasise her point, "be our problem. If we need the day workers, we get the Danes to do it. That is trading. We already agreed on it. In the future, if we need their best workers to join us permanently, we will offer them a place. Not without asking everybody's okay first," Mac said. Pascal stood pensively for a few moments. "I don't trust Gary," she said in a perplexed tone. "Is he too proud to admit they can't cope? Or maybe... Anyway, we both have work to do and cannot waste time worrying about them." She walked off in the direction she'd been going before. Mac did the same. The ominous grey clouds continued to threaten the downpour. As he crossed the field, he saw Pet, who he'd assigned to a work party made of dogs' bodies. He noticed Pet throw a knowing nod at the 3 women working with her, before she swayed over to Mac as he approached. They were all working on the composting boxes and the fire for the thickest branches that wouldn't compost and had to be burned. "Mac," she opened in a breathy voice, her eyes wide and upturned towards his, her face tilted slightly downwards. She'd managed to combine an innocent lamb with a seductive siren. "Mac, could you help us with this, please?" She drew out the last word, adopting a helpless expression, and looked up at him with a bewitching gaze turned up to 11. "With what?" he asked. The gaze faltered for a millisecond. "With these big tree branches, silly. They're much too heavy for us." She reached up and stroked his bicep. That's why there are 4 of you working this job, he said. The branches that you really can't carry need sawing up first. He indicated the bow saw lying on the ground. But we've been trying that. We just... Pet's mouth curled downwards in a pout. That saw will make my hands all rough and blistered. The other 3 women had stopped work and were watching the exchange intently. Mac paused. Pet turned her beguiling smile up to 100,000 lux. Mac fixed her with a steely look over hooded eyebrows and watched the sunlight fade. Aren't you going to help us? Not even a little? No, I'm not. It's about time you woke up. Haven't you noticed the world has changed a bit since you could flutter your eyelashes and have men fall over themselves to please you? The smile vanished like seductive lingerie being abruptly covered up by a wincey dressing gown. But, Pet spluttered, you better learn quickly that everybody on this farm has got to pull their weight and work. We can't afford to carry anybody, especially you women. Especially us women, Pet snapped back, you sexist pig. Why especially us? I suppose you think the men are better than us, don't you? She challenged, looking round for support from the other women, who suddenly returned to their jobs. More valuable, yes. And, in case you hadn't noticed, it's our men we need to keep happy, not the women. We could still scrape by if we lost some of you, but not us men. Pet looked at him, still defiant. So, I'm a sexist pig now, am I? What happened to my big strong arms? Pet opened her mouth to reply, but Mac interrupted her. Listen to me, woman. He raised a finger. I remember women bragging to me in the old days. Yes, bragging. They were room service girls when they went on holiday. That's you, that is. Allergic to breaking a sweat. Tricking some poor dupe into doing it for you. Well, you won't be living that parasitic life here. Tomorrow I'm giving you the dirtiest job, whatever it is, and I expect to see you covered in mud or oil or whatever at close of play. I hated men like you, Mac, Pet spat, red-faced, briefly looking at the backs of her audience. In the old days, I mean, and I never even gave them a peck. Like me, Mac shouted. Like me? This isn't me. I've had to make myself shout and bully you because... Do you know why? Because if I don't... He let the thought hang. Pet looked at Mac, stunned into silence at last. Girls just want to have fun, eh? With some dopey guy buying the drinks and paying for the taxi. That world is gone. Dead. You can still have fun. We all can. But we earn it first. So, Gary began, leaning against the garage door frame. You've been over there all day again. How long before you can tell me how many that farm can feed? Can we go inside the garage and talk about it, Gary? It's going to lash it down any minute. Gary fixed him with a steely glare and didn't move. Oh, all right, Daz stammered. You mean on top of the toffs already there? How many more than all of them? Daz asked. Yeah. That'll do. How many of us could join them? They're doing well, Gary, even without the vegetable garden. You know they've been fishing the lake and river, and they can shoot the ducks and geese that live there. And they've got a good trapping setup. I know all about that, Gary snapped. Daz took a step back. What I don't know about is your veggie garden and what difference it will make. It still depends upon the yields they get from the peas and beans. And the bigger veg, pumpkins, marrows, spuds, they'll be the key. I mean, with good yields, they alone could, probably, make the difference between, feed 10 or 15 extra people. Probably more, but I'll know when they start cropping. Daz nervously bit his lip and looked at Gary's face. He continued gabbling. During the growing season, anyway. Maybe not through the winter. But it depends on a lot of other things they haven't got yet. None of them know anything about preserving food, or clamping, or how they can delay lifting. Finding some more livestock would be great. So would more spuds or a field of wheat. Gary raised his eyebrows sarcastically and made a rolling motion with his finger. And if they don't have any luck with those things, Daz gabbled, they'll probably start getting frustrated and blaming Mac. Never mind about that, Gary interrupted. How many? I'll ask Mac next time I go, should I? Daz asked. Tell me what you think now, shouted Gary, and stop avoiding the question. Okay, Daz answered appeasingly, his hands raised. I think it could feed all of us. I mean, both our farms, so long as we shared everything. All the land, all the labour. Just think, our wheat and established polytunnels added to their hunting and fishing, and sheep and... Interesting, mused Gary, stroking his chin. I'd been wondering about that same question. But both of us add up to a lot of people. He turned back to Daz. So, you think a combined super farm might feed us all? Like if we merged in some way? But then I think of all the reasons it wouldn't, Daz answered hastily. Like, how many of their people did we kill before the truce? Some of their women hate us for killing their men. And likewise some of us, like Simon and Kev. And we still need to see them get through a winter. We've already managed one. They haven't. There mightn't be anybody alive in that manor house next spring if they can't. Gary didn't appear to have heard. He spoke his thoughts aloud as though Daz had left. You know, if we had the lake and all that land in the fields you've planted, if we had that and a few other things, we wouldn't have to be selling ourselves to them like we do. Yeah, Daz hurried on. But the biggest question is how successful the vegetables and fields are going to be. We won't know that until cropping slows down in the autumn. At least the autumn. Chapter 38. The dim morning daylight filtering through the grubby window panes matched the thin light thrown off by the hurricane lamps as Mac joined the early shift in the dining room, those whose jobs could begin around daybreak. Mac, James began as soon as he got through the door, can you find someone to take on a couple of my party's jobs, just for this morning? We won't have time to do the watering before we set off, and I don't think we're going to be back in time to do it later. Yep, we'll sort it at second breakfast. You guys leave as soon as you're ready. This is the last of the bacon, Tiggy announced, almost sounding relieved. Keep your eyes peeled for another pig if you want some more. She disappeared into the large walk-in pantry. Uncle Mac, Nicola interrupted quickly while Tiggy was out of earshot. Auntie Tiggy's not as good in the kitchen as Grandma Joan was. She breaks things and shouts. Yesterday, she shouted, I wish they'd never found that damned smoker. It's the bane of my life. Nicola covered her mouth for the word damned. Mac smiled at her innocence, and she said, I hope they don't catch another pig today. I just couldn't cope with it. That was after she dropped a plate she was drying and it smashed all over the floor. She won't come and tell you. Says she doesn't want to bother you. Mac recalled an argument from only the day before that echoed what Nicola had told him. He'd been checking Cynthia's work party at tea break, but before he'd got to them he'd heard a furious argument. No, James, shut up a minute and look. I've got Julie working her socks off here, weeding all those boxes, beds, I mean. I've made a start on these rows here. She pointed at the first of the cleared field, now filled with lines of vegetables. But I won't finish before she does. She'll have to come and help me. And now you interrupt me, wanting us to build a fence to block the wind blowing onto this field. That's because yields are way better when the plants are protected from wind. The ground doesn't dry out as much. Yeah, I'm sure there's a brilliant reason. Every time you blasted lot on the Labour Council come up with... That's just a joke name, Cynthia, James interrupted. It sounded funny at the time. You make it sound like Stalin or something. Well, it isn't funny how much extra work you dump on us workers. It's getting more like a labour camp every day. We were all right 3 weeks ago. I could manage all my jobs, and there was still time to do the stuff I actually like building a chicken run with Lenny. Cynthia stood up tall to face James, hands on her hips. And then those bloody Danes came over, and there's not enough hours in the day anymore. I might as well be one of your dog's bodies, the amount of skilled jobs I've had a chance to do. Me and Bindi were going to set up those solar panels, you know. I haven't had a minute to even think about them. We've had to put off a lot of jobs like that, James agreed, but it won't be forever. Joan told Mac that once we've set up all the infrastructure, she said. I suppose that means the polytunnels and the fences around the veggies, Cynthia snapped. And then there'll be something else. You just wait and see. It feels like forever. I mean, can you really see an end to it? James wagged his head from side to side, indecisive. No, probably not. We come up with more ideas every day, and most of them have to be put to one side. Like this fence project. We picked that one over half a dozen others we could have given you. All of them important, all necessary to make this place feed us for years. He stopped and raised a finger. Hey, there's an idea. You should come and join the Labour Council. It's not a closed shop. It's just a few of us chatting. You'd be welcome. You could tell them what you just... Become one of the bosses, you mean? Are you serious? There's no way I'm going to take your side over the workers. No, thanks. James had spluttered his surprise at Cynthia's words and started a reply. But then Mac arrived and they stopped arguing. Tiggy walked back into the kitchen with an armful of saucepans and a woven basket. Another scavenged find, which she handed to Nicola. Go on, Little Red Riding Hood. Go and get us some more eggs. Bring everything they've laid. Nicola trotted off and Mac called after her. And find another pig, will you? A pregnant sow for preference. Everybody laughed. Tiggy, Mac opened quietly. People are saying you need some extra help. I can't spare you a full-timer, but if you let me know when your busiest times are, I'll try and pull somebody off a work party then. No need, Mac, but thanks anyway, Tiggy returned with a note of finality. Nicola is more than enough help. In any case, you don't have enough people for the jobs around the farm. I've seen you robbing Peter to pay Paul ever since the Danes came over. Our workload doubled after that. I mean, obviously it will pay us off tenfold later this year, but still. She paused. Actually, there is something. Sorry to have to add to your troubles, but until those vegetables start cropping, we have a shortfall. Could you get someone to do a mushroom hunt and a bulrush collection? They don't need to cut up and prep the bulrushes. Nicola and I will do that, but I can't spare her to go and gather them. She turned back to her work in the kitchen. Thanks anyway, Mac, but look after the others instead. You don't need to be fussing around me. Count on me and Nicky to keep the home fires burning. Mac poured himself a mug of tea and sat down with the first breakfast sitting. How's the clinic holding up, Linda? He asked. Are the beds still standing? Yes, they're fine, thanks, but there's something else I've got to tell you about. In fact, I shouldn't have left it this long. Hurry up then, Mac urged. I'm already overdue. Overdue, she giggled. Funny how she'd use that word, Mac, because... Babies, he guessed. We've got 3 pregnancies now, nowhere to deliver them. I know it's still miles off, but 3, the men called out together. Who's the third? We know about Ali and Jess, but... Linda looked over her glasses at Mac and Tomo. I'm hoping the other Polish girl doesn't catch as well after you two got up to no good with them. At the moment, it's just Anna. She's a week later. Whoops, Mac chuckled. Maria and Anna, James said admiringly. Get in. Harumphed Linda disapprovingly. You've both got lovely girls already. They'd follow you to Timbuktu if you asked. They worship the ground you two walk on, and you've upset them no end going with those home wreckers. Man-stealers, she trailed off. No homes were wrecked, Tomo retorted. Only Hyman's. Ha ha, he guffawed. Anyway, Linda shook her head reprovingly. You boys boasting won't get us a properly stocked clinic. You brought back a lot of useful stuff from Lancaster, medicines and dressings and that. But if you're going again, I'll write you a list of things we still don't have. And if you can find some wool and knitting needles, I can teach the girls how to make some lovely baby clothes. Mac didn't answer. He was staring into space. Earth to Mac, James said in a nerdy voice. Earth to Mac. Come in, Mac. 3, Mac said disbelievingly. 3 babies, on top of everything else. It was bound to happen sooner or later, Linda said. You know, once we could have sex with whoever we liked without being beaten up for it, finished Mac. Yeah, that, agreed Linda. Once we could do that, well, once you young ones could, someone catching pregnant was inevitable. Yeah, I suppose, Mac agreed, but 3 at once is going to be tricky. Have you ever delivered a baby? No, Linda admitted with a shake of her head. I studied the rudiments when I trained, but... She tailed off. Oh, Mac, there's so much that could go wrong. Others began dropping in for breakfast, and the room became too noisy. The 2 men left the room with mugs of fruit tea. Getting away with murder, sang Tomo lustily, as they walked outside into the overcast spring day. You can tell the girl you love her while you're working on another. Who sang that? Mac asked. Meatloaf, James called back. You'll be getting away with murder. Chapter 39. As the last of the daylight faded outside the dining room windows, Alex carried the large billy can of soup from the kitchen and placed it at the centre of the table. He was first to fill his bowl with a ladle. Do you remember when there'd be a delicious smell from the soup and we'd all be ravenous for the main course? There was a murmur of agreement. I'm doing my best, protested Tiggy, and if you don't like it, find someone else. I only volunteered for a week, and it's been 3 already. She was interrupted by a loud knocking on the kitchen window. Who the hell is that? Surprised voices asked. There's nobody still working outside by my count, Tomo said. Oh, hang on, yes there is. Pet hasn't finished that job you made her do with the compost heap and sheep muck, has she? She's just putting her tools away now, Bindi said. I just checked. That hot water on the stove is for her. It'll just take the chill off the cold water in the outdoor shower. Pet wouldn't be knocking on the window, though, would she? Jessie fetched Miriam a bowl of soup and sat down next to her. Her hair was dishevelled, her face and hands laced with long scratches like cracks in ice. A cut on her forehead had bled, crusting one of her eyebrows with dried blood. Thank you, she said, close to tears. Thank goodness I found this place. And thank goodness for you, we don't have to lock the gates at dark anymore, Ali said, or else you'd have been outside all night. Miriam nodded as she spooned the soup. Lord, I'm so hungry. I've been searching all day since Everton sent me out for some firewood. I couldn't take a coat, or he'd have known. It's only about 3 miles as the crow flies, but you didn't know the way, Jessie said. I was about to give up for the night and find somewhere dry to keep warm and sleep. Then I smelled wood smoke, so I tried to follow it. When I heard your sheep baaing, I gave a shout of praise. It's only a few 100 yards from there, Jessie said. And then I prayed you'd take me in and not send me away. I shouldn't have worried, not after meeting you. You're decent people. Linda stood up. Now you've eaten, let me give you a check-up. 7 months pregnant, and you've gone through all that today. You must have been desperate, you poor soul. Yes, desperate to get away from that devil before I got too big. I've been praying for an opportunity ever since you visited. How long to go, love? Linda asked. About 2 months more, I think. As the door closed, Half-Screw burst out. Look, we've been breaking our backs, working to build up this farm. Is she just going to get bed and board from us without paying in? Not just that, Julie added, but Linda's time. And how many of our precious medicines? I didn't speak up when Gus and Stella came back with you, but I should have. They and others eyed Mac questioningly, urgently, aggressively. Wearing a thoughtful look, he studied the faces around the room. A parabola of opinions and arguments fired out of the group, swinging first towards sympathy to Miriam, and then, just as violently, in the opposite direction. Pascal stood up to speak, and the crossfire paused. "You are being romantique," she said to the group, shouting down Half-Screw and Julie. "How you say, hopeless romantique. Just think, will you work as hard next week, next month, knowing someone can just walk in and be given a share for nothing?" Too right. All this didn't happen by accident, Alex boomed. Since Matt got us all pulling together, we've got something worth working for. Worth fighting for too, Tomo called out. We do our drills and defence practice in case someone tries to steal it off us. Exactement, Pascal agreed. I say again, will you work into the night getting wet and cold as we do now when others are doing nothing? I won't. There was a chorus of agreement. I can't believe you mercenaries can be so cold, Cynthia exploded. I've been waiting for a kind word from any of you for this poor girl. That's right, Bindi chipped in. I'm right with you, Cinders. Come on, you lot, she's pregnant. We can't just leave her to give birth on her own. It's inhuman to turn her away. Mac, tell them. I'm listening to you, Mac said. It's not for me to decide. Everybody's got to feel free to say their piece. I'll say my piece, Cynthia said firmly. I say we take her in and give her a bed. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if we put that pregnant girl out in the cold, like some of you lot want to do. She raised her eyes in disbelief. Half the room agreed. Think hard about what we'll all have to pay for your generosity. Remember how it used to be, Alex said, emphasising the words we and you by eyeing the two groups. A puppy's not just for Christmas, you know. Exactly, Julie said angrily. If we're not careful, it'll be just like the old days. Remember? They took all that tax off us, and what did it go on? Wasters and the work-shy. Women like her who never did a day's work in their lives got knocked up to get a council house. She's not like one of those, though, Mac interrupted. She's not a parasite. She was at a Christian college before. You only have to listen to her to see that. I mean, she was starving, but she still ate that soup like she was at a dinner party. D'accord, said Pascal. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps she is a good one, not a scrounger. She rolled and elongated her R's deliciously, and Mac laughed. Be serious, please, Mac, she corrected him. She is still an extra mouth to feed. She cannot work, and there will be a baby as well in a few months, if nothing goes wrong in the meantime. That's what I'm saying, said Alex, more softly, to those gathering around Cynthia and Bindi. You want us to sign a blank cheque, make a commitment to who knows what. And what about next time? Mac spoke up. We obviously can't turn her out, not tonight anyway. Too many of us are flatly against that. We have to honour people's strong feelings, for now. But, he spread his hands wide to the room, how many more could we take? What if they all decided to come? What if Miriam is just the first, like the dwarves coming to Bilbo's hobbit hole, one by one? Good point, Half-Screw jumped in. Tomo said there were 6 women, all pregnant. There's no way we could take that many, even sleep them, let alone feed them. I don't think that's likely, though, Bindi answered. Remember, Jessie said only 2 of them had anything about them. Miriam was one of those. What if you're wrong? Suppose the 2 capable ones have led the others here. I don't know, Bindi admitted. 6 would be too many, like you say. And don't forget, she's pregnant with that black rapist's child, James said. Half the room erupted with accusations and anger. I can't believe what I'm hearing, Cynthia exclaimed, an octave higher than usual. I thought you were a decent guy, not a racist. I'm not working with you tomorrow, or ever again. How is that racist? James answered. He's black and a rapist. Facts, darling. What utter rubbish, Julie said witheringly. James, a racist? He's no such thing, you silly cow. Never mind racist, you must be a communist, wanting to give away everything we've built up for ourselves to anybody who turns up. Yeah, that's exactly what she is. I bet Cynthia's one of the great unwashed, selling the socialist worker, clobbing up St. Paul's Cathedral. Hang on, Cynthia objected. I never said anything about giving her everything, did I? Oh, really? Pascal retorted sarcastically. Once she has had the baby, what then? You cannot put them back, you know. That's what I was saying, James interrupted, before Trotsky started on me. 6 of that black rapist's babies. What are they going to grow up into? They're going to grow up into whatever their mothers make them into, Ashanti said. Look, we're getting off the point, Julie pointed out impatiently. What do we do about this one? Miriam, corrected Cynthia. Yeah, all right, Miriam. What are we going to do with her? It's simple. We let her stay tonight and send her back tomorrow, James said firmly. D'accord, Pascal agreed. We cannot feed the extra mouths. One day we may want more workers, but not today. There was a murmur of agreement from half the room. Chapter 40. I can't live with that, Cynthia said. Me neither, Ashanti added. Nor me, Bindi said. The room echoed with others agreeing. We'd be sending her back to be beaten and raped at the very least. Didn't you tell us Everton had killed the other 2 men? Bindi looked at Mac, Jessie and Tomo, who nodded. Surely, nobody actually wants that, do they? She challenged the room. No, James took up the baton, but it's a brutal world out there. We can't be responsible for what other people do. It was pretty brutal here not so long ago under Ricky, wasn't it? That's right, Julie joined in again. And as bad as it was, none of us would have dared to leave. Surviving's better than dying, right? There wasn't anywhere else to go back then. Except the Danes, obviously, and we were at war with them, as good as anyway. Miriam ran back. Miriam ran away to somewhere she knew there were decent people. Cynthia let the words hang. And now half of us want to send her back. She held out her hands wide, her face showing horror. Look, James said defiantly, I don't like it any more than you. He looked at Cynthia and Ashanti. But you haven't the right to give away other people's things. He looked around for support. There were plenty of calls of yeah, right, and similar comments. For instance, James went on, if we were a business, which we sort of are, we'd choose who we hired, wouldn't we? We'd reject riffraff and only pick workers, right? Workers with skills we needed, added Julie. Right, workers with skills, experience, qualifications, you know. And nobody would be slagging us off because we didn't hire everybody who applied. We'd only fill the vacancies we had. Hiring everybody would bankrupt the business, wouldn't it? Julie said with finality. But we're not a business, Bindi reported. What are we then, a charity? Julie exclaimed, exasperated. Not a charity, not exactly. We're a community, or a cooperative, or... Bindi looked around the room for help. I don't know what to call us, but haven't we become something? Something we all belong to? Like the Socialist Worker Party, mocked James. You talk like a greedy fat cat, like a banker screwing everyone else over for your bonus, Bindi called out, infuriated and near to tears. I can't bear to be at the same table as you. I don't want to work with you either again. You're dead wrong there, Bindi, James said, softening his tone. I sound like an entrepreneur, working my nuts off to get a business up and running, and resenting half of it tax to pay for layabouts to get up at dinner time to go and cash their gyros. Hey, James, answer me this, Cynthia demanded. Should we send Joan back with Miriam too? After all, she's no use to us anymore. You're painting me black as coal, James objected, sounding hurt. Joan's earned the right to be looked after when she's sick. Earned it twice over in my book. Both sides of the room loudly agreed. A silence followed while they digested what it meant for them. "Go on, Mac, say something," Ali said. "Yeah, all right." He stood up. "Here goes. I'll say this right off the bat. We are not going to split up our community," he nodded at Bindi, "or whatever we are, over this. We're not breaking up because we can't agree what to do about Miriam. We've worked too hard and come too far for that. We're going to find a way." He paused and looked around the room. Unanimously, faces reflected agreement. "Seems to me both sides have a point. We can't accept just anybody who turns up. We've got a winter to prepare for. Anybody new has to be able to contribute for us to take them into our team, let's call it. And they'd have to get along with us too and keep the rules. Not that we have any rules as such, but you know what I mean." "We know what you mean, Mac," Ali said supportively. "Like no black rapists allowed," James said. "Exactly," Mac agreed. "If Everton turned up, nobody would be arguing for him like they are for Miriam." More nods and approval. "No white rapists either," Mac said, looking at Cynthia and Ashanti, expecting approval. The room went quiet. Mac looked to the rest of the room quizzically, but gained nothing. That said," he continued, "I can't personally go along with returning Miriam back to Everton. What we need is to thrash out and decide what we all can agree on. What are we members of? What are the rules? What do we own? Who gets to join?" And he stopped as the door handle turned. The door opened and Linda walked in, holding Miriam's hand. Miriam's face was wet. She dabbed her eyes and nose with a linen handkerchief. "Before you say anything else, we heard most of that. I've convinced her to stay for tonight. She was that upset, she wanted to leave right away, listening to some of you." She glared at James and Pascal. "And one more thing before I take her upstairs. She was the head chef at that Bible convention thingy. Nearly 2 years at catering school before that." She turned and led the sobbing Miriam back to the hall and stairs. Tomo broke the silence. "I don't know if we're a community," he said, "but we could be a section if we can pull together." There were 2 roofed structures about 50 feet to the north of the manor house. One was the Dutch barn they'd used as a wood store. The other was the covered hardstanding where the gas and drums of petrol and diesel stood. On and off over the past weeks, Mac's work party had been replacing the canvas roof with a wooden one made of planks and covered by asphalt roll. In the space between the two stood a tractor they'd hoped Chris would work on in exchange for Half-Screw's gunsmithing. "If only we could have got Chris to come and fix that," Alex said, half to himself. But after Half-Screw checked over those shotguns and said none of them were repairable, we've had nothing to trade for him with. Mac and Alex were completing the final section of roof when Linda came around the corner of the red brick wall that formed the northern side of the perimeter wall. She walked slowly, not meeting their eyes. "Is it Joan?" Mac asked gently. Linda tried, but couldn't stop the tears forming in her eyes. "I'm sure she's going to die soon, probably in the next few hours. Definitely won't last until tonight. She's not breathing properly. In fact, I thought she'd gone once or twice. Then I heard her take a great big breath in." The 2 men's shoulders sank. "I've been dreading this," Alex said. Mac closed his eyes, giving a deep sigh. "I've been crossing everything that I had that she'd get better. Guess not." Linda shook her head. "What I want you all to do is to come in and just hold her hand for a minute and say goodbye to her. Even though she can't speak, she can probably hear." Chapter 41. Mac took a drink from the tea tray Nicola had come out with mid-morning. Bindi had come across the field with her to help carry it. The sections of the greenhouse had arrived more than 2 weeks earlier, but Mac and Alex were only now fixing them together on the base they'd built days before. Mac looked up at the sky, pointing out the dark clouds visible to the northeast over the mid-Wold hills. If they come our way, afternoon tea will have to be in the barn. Anyway, I'll be off. Hold your horses, Mac. Have a seat, will you? Bindi interrupted. I'll go and check on the other work parties this time. You never get a proper break at tea time. Isn't this you two's second big job already today? Thanks, Bindi. You're a star. Check how long before Tomo's group need another man for the heavy lifting. All the others are probably managing okay. Bindi strode off towards the manor house, where Tomo's party were building a gravity-filled cold water tank in the loft. Mac sat back and put his arm around Nicola. Did everybody say their goodbyes and thank yous to Joan? She nodded and looked up at him with innocent eyes. Uncle Mac, she began, why did Grandma Joan have to die? Mac took a deep breath. Well, we don't really know. Auntie Linda wasn't able to find out. Nicola waited for his stumbling explanation to finish. But why does anybody have to die? Like my mum and dad, and my brother, and all the people. Oh, Mac faltered. I don't know that one either. I suppose I should. Auntie Miriam knows about those things. Shall we both talk with her tonight? Gary walked out of the farmhouse as Daz was walking across the yard to the polytunnels. Hang on, I want a word with you. He made Daz wait until he reached the gate. Then some more, as he fixed Daz with a look that made him feel he'd been doing something he shouldn't and had just been found out. How's it going over there, Daz? I mean, with that little thing you've got on the side. Carol, isn't it? Daz swallowed. It's going good, Gary. You know, me and Rosie have worked something out. She doesn't mind if I go over 2 or 3 times in a week, he gabbled nervously. Rosie doesn't mind, eh? Gary narrowed his eyebrows and his voice became menacing. You should be worrying whether I mind, not Rosie. Sorry, Gary, I'm not with you, Daz said, puzzled. Whether you mind me going? You don't, do you? Surely you want... You heard, Gary snapped. You used to keep me in the picture about how they're doing over there. Like how your vegetable garden's growing, and when they've had a good hunt. But you've dried up recently. There's nothing much to tell you, Gary, Daz stuttered. Most of all, I want to know how many it will feed, and how much they need you, Gary hissed. But I know no more than when I first asked you. They couldn't run it really effectively without my help yet, Daz said. But they could cope. What they can't do is manage if there were diseases or problems like that. They don't know how to do lots of things, like when to harvest and how to... He stopped talking as Gary grabbed his jacket and shoved his face in Daz's nose. You told me all that last week. What's the latest? Daz quickly summarised the manor house's progress in the 3 weeks since he and the volunteers spent the day there. Gary swung the gate to and fro, pursing his lips in thought. Then he fixed Daz with an examining glare. I've let you keep going over, remember? It's in our interest to make that veggie garden successful, but I don't think you're on my side. I think you're planning on selling me out. Decide if you're a Dane or a Toff. Tell me what I need to know. Daz looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot. All right, he said decisively. They're doing all right, but they can't keep up with all the jobs I've given them for when I'm not there. Good. So they need more workers to succeed, do they? Yeah. In fact, they were talking about asking some of ours to come across to them. And which of us would be most valuable? Oh, yeah? Gary put his hands on his hips. Lord Snooty's going to poach our best people, is he? He'd like to. He sounded me out about how you'd feel about it, and whether our people would want to come across. What did you tell him? Does he know we can't feed ourselves? Does he know we're on the brink of mutiny? He suspected we were, but I told him we were doing just fine and you weren't interested in their farm. Gary stroked his chin thoughtfully. So you are on my side after all. Do you think he fell for it? Of course he did. He thinks I want to come over to him and Carol and dump you. So, he raised his eyebrows, it sounds like you've got a plan up your sleeve. Gary looked sideways at Daz. Need to know, big fella. He tapped the side of his nose. Loose lips and all that. I'll keep you all informed at the right time, number 2. Everybody be quiet and listen, Mac boomed. Conversation stopped and heads turned to face him. Everybody's feeling sad about losing Joan, I know, he said more softly. We're going to bury her somewhere special and have a headstone of some sort. Anyone who wants to can say some words. But, he continued, interrupting others offering ideas for headstones, engravings and hymns, we have to find a way to manage without her. That'll be almost impossible. Joan kept us, alive and well-fed through the hardest times. Through Ricky and almost constant hunger, nearly malnutrition, frankly. And she only had the one helper. Nicola began to cry, and Tiggy put an arm around her. Tiggy has done a terrific job, Mac gestured theatrically, like a ringmaster introducing the star trapeze artist. Cheers and applause broke out. Especially for a posh bird who couldn't boil an egg, so she says anyway. He raised his eyebrows questioningly. And Nicola too, he added, indicating the girl. You've helped Tiggy while she took on the job, showing her what Joan used to do, where to find things. Never you mind while she took on the job, Mac. I only volunteered for a week. Who's going to take the next stretch? That's sort of what I'm leading to, Tiggy. One helper isn't enough. Most of you, he swept his arm around the room, were wives or mums or girlfriends. You must all know some recipes. We can't replace Joan, not by a long chalk. Tiggy, or whoever of you goes next, certainly can't. Will everybody lend a hand so she doesn't get overloaded or so fed up she wants to give up? What do you say? Women began offering suggestions and stories of their family's favourite meals. They all sound delicious, Mac said. And we had some good news this morning from last night's hunting party. Not only did Half-Screw shoot a piglet, we're going to have... I'll tell them, Mac, Mandeep interrupted. We're going to have potatoes, everybody, not from a packet or a tin. Bindi and I have been searching for weeks, and we found a garden full of them yesterday. She gave Bindi a high five and received pats on the back and hugs from around the room. I hope that means we won't be needing to eat bulrush roots for much longer then, Tiggy whispered to Alex. You can live for ages on a sack of potatoes, Ali chipped in. When Dad was out of work, Mum made all sorts of meals out of them. Great. Go and see Tiggy afterwards with your ideas. And she can organise when she wants your help. When I say Tiggy, I mean... Never mind, Mac. Tiggy jumped in. It's best if one woman organises this extra help. I've started showing Miriam the layout, so she'll be able to take over. I suppose I can put up with it for a few more days. But after that, you girls, she indicated the women who'd offered ideas, can go and help her instead of me. The door burst in and Lenny ran in. Can't any of you smell the smoke? He shouted. Come and help, or the whole fuel store will go up. The kitchen emptied through the front door. Mac held Lenny's sleeve as he turned to join the others. Will we need water, Lenny, or is it too far gone for that? Yeah, water, definitely, he agreed. Get these and give them out, Mac said, passing him the water buckets used for supplying the kitchen from the well. Chapter 42. "Start filling these from the well, while we see how bad it is," Mac shouted, as he followed Lenny through the open laburnum gate. Several others followed. The open-sided Dutch barn they turned into a wood store was ablaze. Squinting through the smoke blowing in front of them, Mac could see one half of the roof was on fire. The half closest to the fuel store was steaming, but not yet alight. Mac screamed for the buckets of water. Climbing on top of the tractor, he took the first bucket Lenny passed him and threw it onto the unburnt half of the roof. Steam poured from the hot wooden tiles, flushing his face with heat. "Get a line going," he shouted, but saw that one had already formed. The buckets were coming frustratingly slowly. Lenny climbed up on the tractor alongside him, and together they soaked the closer side of the roof, then aimed at the farther side. Very little of the water reached that far, and soon burning rafters began to fall on the firewood stacks below. Mac realised the barn could not be saved. He turned to the people on the line and shouted, "Forget the water, save the gas and fuel," before jumping down and running to the Calagas cylinders, laying one on its side and rolling it down the path away from the barn. Once he reached North Gate, he left the cylinder lying in the grass and ran back for another. Others were doing the same. He reached the fuel store where all the tall gas cylinders were already being rolled away, and the small ones carried by hand. "Quick, Lenny, help me with this," he shouted, taking hold of a drum of diesel. Together they rolled it to the safe distance, but then had to stop for breath. The full drum was much harder than the cylinder to roll over the muddy ground. Mac looked away to see men and women in twos and threes working together to roll more drums and gas cylinders away from the store. Behind them the fire had engulfed the nearer half of the roof and the stores of firewood and reclaimed timber inside the barn. Flames blown by the wind began to lick across the gap between the structures. Mac noticed a few people running back to the fuel store to rescue more drums. "No, no," he bawled, "the fire's too close. Help get those last drums," he indicated those already halfway between the store and Northgate, "and leave the rest. Everybody else, get behind the brick wall. If one of those drums of petrol goes up, they all will." Mac and Lenny helped roll the last few cylinders of the remaining few yards to join the others. Mac looked back regretfully at the fuel store. Most of the drums of petrol and diesel were still there. They'd saved only a handful. He ran back through Laburnum Gate to join the others. The men wore stoic faces. Some of the women were crying, and others white-faced. "There's nothing we can do now," Mac said firmly. "Everybody move across to the other side of the manor house. I'll keep an eye on the fire, just in case it doesn't cross the gap, but I'm not hopeful." Mac called Lenny and James over where nobody could overhear. "Be ready to make everybody run into the fields if... I don't know how far those drums will fly if they blow up. Here is probably the safest place, but who knows?" Mac grabbed a ladder and set it against the corner of the house. From there, he could see the barn and the fuel store's roof. In just the short time it had taken to retreat, the flames had crossed the gap and enveloped the roof. He cursed to himself as he thought about how they'd only finished covering it in roofing felt a few days earlier. Thick black smoke rose from the two buildings. As Mac watched, a corner of the barn's roof collapsed, falling down onto the wood store below. Flames began to roll directly underneath the fuel store's roof, into the space where the remaining gas bottles and fuel drums were. "Get your backs to the brick wall, everybody," he shouted, rapidly descending the ladder. "The whole lot's ablaze. The drums will be going off any moment." They didn't have to wait long. The sound of the burning roof and snapping timbers was dwarfed by thunderous booms as the drums and cylinders exploded. Loud reports, sounding like fragments of metal striking the far side of the manor house's brick wall, drew screams from some of the women. The sounds of breaking glass punctured the wall of sound. A burning oil drum fell from the sky in front of them, landing on the far side of the wooden perimeter wall Ricky had made them build. A crashing sound as it hit the ground confirmed it had landed on a polytunnel. Another crash came from above them as a drum struck the manor house's roof and rolled down, snapping the ladder Mac had been standing on a few minutes earlier. It rolled harmlessly onto the grass, burning fiercely, pouring out thick black smoke, but not near enough the house to threaten it. Mac dashed out to get a clear look at the roof. Ali and Pascal screamed at him to come back. He ran back to them. "There's just a hole in the roof, but no flames, thank God," he told them. As he spoke, a third drum landed with an explosion of breaking glass. That evening, exhausted and spent, they sat around the dining table. Tiggy and Nicole had excused themselves from the clean-up to prepare dinner. Seeing how quickly it was devoured, Tiggy realised she'd need to cook supper too. Everyone went back outside to work, either attaching a makeshift polythene cover to go over the hole in the roof, repairing what was left of the polytunnel, shoring up all the other damage from the falling drums, and putting out the rest of the smouldering remains of the two buildings. They left the smashed greenhouse untouched. Shattered, after working long after dark, they wolfed down Tiggy's stew and went to bed exhausted. But while they were eating, their resignation and defeat was clear. All that work we did on the wood store wasted. I was going to use some of those planks for raised beds once we'd cleared that bit of far field. Yeah, remember how long it took to bring in all that gas and petrol? Weeks, wasn't it? What's the point? What's coming next, eh? A massive storm to wipe out all the crops? Lightning to set the house on fire? I know. I really thought we were going to make it. We'd come so far. First Joan, now this fire. If bad luck comes in threes, we'll be lucky if we're all still alive after whatever's coming next. They talked themselves out and wearily climbed the stairs. Gary sat on the workbench and looked across at Daz and Simon. "Go shut that door, will you, Daz?" he began. "You both know about the fire at Mac's place, don't you?" "Yeah," Simon confirmed. "Kelly nipped over when she heard the yells and smelled the smoke. She didn't dare get any closer when the oil drums started blowing up and falling on the house and polytunnels. And I was watching them from the woods later on," Gary added. "They were all working until way after dark, putting out the fires and patching up the damage. They'll be absolutely knackered now. And on the point of giving up, I reckon." He fixed the two men with a wolfish grin. "They're ripe for the taking. Nobody will be on guard. Nobody will even be awake. This is our best chance ever." "Best chance for what?" Simon asked. "Are you serious?" Gary said, astounded. "For taking them over, of course. Just like we used to try before the truce, you mean?" Simon said. "Before I started going over to help them teach all about growing veggies," Daz said. "Don't you girls start going soft on me now," Gary snapped. "Weren't we eating blackbirds and sparrows the other day? And what are they eating? Venison and pork? Duck? Spring vegetables? Have they offered to help us out? It's us or them, don't you realise? Either they starve or we do. Well, sorry, it's not going to be us." The two men made ambivalent faces. "I don't know, Gary," Simon said. "Yeah, we are slowly starving. But how many men have we lost attacking them over the last year? We never even got close to getting inside. And they've got all those guns, remember?" "Of course I remember," Gary snapped. "But now we know exactly where the guns are kept." He winked at Daz. "We know which door to go in by. And once we're in, before they even wake up, the farm will be ours. And remember, Daz can wander in any time he likes, without any of them getting suspicious. They'll just think he's shagging his bit on the side. He can give us the nod when it's clear for us to get in safely. Simon nodded. All right, he said tentatively. So we don't have to fight to get in. But even when we're in, we still don't have the guns. They're still going to fight us as soon as they see us mobbed up inside their house. Don't you worry about that, my old son. Gary waved his hand dismissively. I've got a foolproof plan to take care of that little problem. And I've got the crossbow, don't forget. Nobody will act the hero with that pointed at their heart. It could work, Simon agreed, but it will work, like clockwork, Gary interrupted. You just concentrate on the feast you're going to be eating in an hour's time. Your job is to round up all the men and get them tooled up. What? Simon protested. You can't just push me out in the cold one day and bring me in the next. What am I supposed to think, Gary? I never know where I stand with you anymore. Come through for me on this and you'll be sitting pretty again, Gary said. A winning smile played on his lips, but not in his eyes. Why can't you do it? Why can't you do it? Or both of us together? They'll take a lot of convincing, you know. The women talk about how their men don't have to risk being shot anymore, going on your pointless raids. That's what they call them, pointless. Nobody says these things to you, but they do to me. And to Daz, probably. He turned to Daz for confirmation, but stopped at the sight of Daz's white face, covered in beads of sweat. Gary, alerted by the abrupt silence, turned to look at what had silenced Simon. You can't, began Daz, his voice high and tremulous. You can't mean to attack them tonight, not after... Oh, yes, I do, Gary answered resolutely, and you're going to play your part, or you'll be out on your lonesome, remember? But I can't. Daz answered wretchedly. He paused, his shallow breathing, breaking up his words like jazz percussion. I mean, we can't attack them like that. More of us will be killed again. What? Gary shouted. Out with it! What haven't you told me? It's, Daz began, his eyes wide, looking around the workshop as if for inspiration. Because all the guns aren't locked up at night. Yes, that's why. Mac and the others keep loaded shotguns under their beds at night. What? Roared Simon. Well, that's that then, he said to Gary. Nobody will come on a suicide mission. You can forget raiding them tonight. A crossbow against shotguns? Forget it.